But anyhow, President Obama last night gave this brilliant farewell address, and there are a number of points that he made. I think one of the first was the importance of rebuilding our democratic institutions, and including the right to vote. Here is President Obama from last night.
Our democracy is threatened whenever we take it for granted. All of us, regardless of party, should be throwing ourselves into the task of rebuilding our democratic institutions. When voting rates in America are some of the lowest among advanced democracies, we should be making it easier, not harder, to vote.
Calling out Republicans there. And the crowd goes nuts, calling out the Republicans.
When trust in our institutions is low, we should reduce the corrosive influence of money in our politics and insist on the principles of transparency and ethics in public service.
That's absolutely brilliant. And, of course, the Republicans are now in charge, so I'm not holding my breath. But these are important things that needed to be said. In fact, he pointed out that the Constitution, without us, without we the people, if we're not willing to defend our country, if we're not willing to defend our Constitution, if we're not willing to stand up for the United States, if we're not willing to engage in civic activity, if we're not willing to, hey, democracy is not a spectator sport, tag you're it. If we're not willing to do that, the Constitution is just a piece of paper. If we do get involved, then the Constitution becomes the living document through which we're doing that involvement. Here's President Obama saying that much more elegantly than I just did.
All of this depends on our participation, on each of us accepting the responsibility of citizenship, regardless of which way the pendulum of power happens to be swinging. Our Constitution is a remarkable, beautiful gift. But it's really just a piece of parchment. It has no power on its own. We, the people, give it power. We, the people, give it meaning with our participation and with the choices that we make and the alliances that we forge, whether or not we stand up for our freedoms, whether or not we respect and enforce the rule of law. That's up to us. America's no fragile thing, but the gains of our long journey to freedom are not assured.
They're not assured. And that is a warning. That is a warning. I mean, presidential farewell addresses, Dwight Eisenhower's warning about the military-industrial complex, obviously prescient. Well, it wasn't prescient. He was observing it in real time and just saying, hey, look out. But George Washington warned us about getting too political, about partisan divisions. And George Washington, typically his speeches, by the way, were ghostwritten by James Madison. So these are probably James Madison's words. But here's President Obama quoting George Washington.
In his own farewell address, George Washington wrote that self-government is the underpinning of our safety, prosperity, and liberty. But from different causes and from different quarters, much pains will be taken to weaken in your minds the conviction of this truth. And so we have to preserve this truth with jealous anxiety that we should reject the first dawning of every attempt to alienate any portion of our country from the rest, or to enfeeble the sacred ties that make us one.
It's absolutely brilliant quote, and it's so true. And this has been, tragically, the Republicans' playbook for the last 8 years. Rather than working to make America better, they have been working to destroy our first black president. That's what they've been doing for 8 years. They've been doing it aggressively. They've been doing it repeatedly. They've been obstructing every way that they possibly can. And then Donald Trump this morning, again, taking the opportunity to even trash Hillary Clinton. I mean, he's still campaigning. It's bizarre. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program.